Today's walk-around video we have for your pleasure a 1966 Imperial LeBaron. My personal favorite car of any I've ever owned. The Imperial LeBaron was the top-of-the-line offering from Chrysler. This was an unprecedented vehicle in terms of appointments. It had luxury Claro wood that was harvested from old grove forests that date back to the Revolutionary War on the dash. It has fancy emblazoned patterns on the seat, embossed, to imitate the Imperial crest. It had optional tilt and telescoping steering wheel, borrowed from General Motors. It's the same thing you'd find on a 66 Cadillac. I love that they refer to the air conditioning as fresh cool, and the cruise control is called autopilot. I have that partially disassembled because I'm working on it. It has the rear air option, which these little vents here denote. That would also include a separate air conditioning evaporator, I believe, in the trunk, so that way the rear seats were extra cool. This one is equipped with an AM radio, one of the few options this vehicle doesn't have, being the FM radio, new feature for that year. Mileage shows 115,000, but the speedometer stopped working. This is the Autotronic Eye, GM's automatic headlight dimmer that Chrysler borrowed. This particular example is a smooth top car. Factory triple black. Black bottom base, black interior, black top, and a very unique vehicle. The smaller window in the rear on the LeBaron versus the full-sized crown window. The little crests here with the golden trim around the edges, the golden edging around the rear crest, all denote it as the special edition. Now the door sticks a little on the front here. Okay, I'll go around. There again is the gold trim around the crest. Help to denote that it's a special edition. This particular car has roughly $1,500 to almost $2,000 worth of options on it. I'm just fumbling for the automatic trunk release. I'll deal with that later. A rare option for cars back in 1966. I have the parts for the correct factory original mirror, and this is why I wanted to pop the trunk. This control right here is what makes the automatic headlight dimmer work. You'll notice it's a vacuum tube relay controlled module. You can adjust the height and depth from here. That's where it plugs in. It's a fascinating little piece. I keep many spare parts in the trunk of this car. I'm also in the process of redoing the motor on the rear driver's side window, so that's another reason that's partially disassembled. I have an incorrect base mirror here. This is a little bit earlier one. This is off of a 57 Dodge or Plymouth, I want to say. It's a Chrysler product from the 50s. I think your 57, 58 Plymouth used that mirror. Otherwise, the gold trim around the headlight bezels is still present. You see some scrapes, little surface rust spots, because this car is still wearing its original 1966 paint, worn through on some spots. But here you can see the difference in the mirrors. According to the build code, this is a factory passenger side mirror equipped car. But these things, they spared no expense. All the bells and whistles. Power operated vent windows, which, interestingly enough, you'll note work in absentia from the key in the ignition. But when you put the key in the ignition, she starts up and runs fine. It's got a 440 motor underneath the hood. So just pop the release and I'll show you. There we are. I've got a more modern carburetor on it. It's a Carter 650, so that way I get better fuel economy. If you stay out of it, you can get in the 14-mile range if you're lucky in cities. If I keep my foot in it, I'll get about 8 or 9. Of course, that's the more fun way to drive, but a car like this, if you could afford this, you were not worried about fuel economy. Especially if you had the top-of-the-line LeBaron. The windshield wipers, they still move in the archaic from center side. They're not recessed. GM wouldn't start recessing the windshield wipers on their Cadillacs until 1968. So that's not wholly uncommon. But it shows that the windshield design is a holdover from 1957. The same thing with the glass. Back in the day, that actually got it a bunch of criticism for being stodgy and outdated. The lines on this car are penned by Elwood Engel, best known for the 1961 through 64 Lincoln Continental. And the similarities are striking. What's interesting is the little bit of a back and forth war you had between Lincoln and Chrysler. When this car debuted in 1964 with its ribbon-style speedometer that fills up like a thermometer as you drive, check my video of my other 66 Imperial to see how that functions. It would be adopted in the 66 model year for Lincoln. The indicator for gear is missing on this. The temperature and oil pressure gauges do not work. The fuel gauge does, and amazingly the alternator gauge does. But notice the back seats also have the same emblazoned logo. I'm not actually going to take the car around the block this time. I'm just showing how light and effortless the steering is. You turn this car with a pinky's touch, and despite it having four-wheel drum brakes, it stops remarkably well. If you can hear the engine, good for you, because it's fairly quiet. This one is still running the original single exhaust. Why they didn't option it with dual, I do not know. But otherwise, map light doesn't work, radio doesn't work, power antenna doesn't work. I guarantee you the Autotronic dimmer doesn't work, even though I have pretty much minimal idea of how to use it properly with modern lights. It's an interesting matter. The horn does work though. And this is how you unlock for tilt and telescope, or for telescoping. Recenter this. And then for tilt, this was crazy in 1966. I don't remember the exact cost. I think it was around a $125 option just for tilt and telescoping on the wheel. It's ironic seeing as I don't actually use this feature because I leave it at stock angle and never adjust it. But you have your fully appointed switch panels, your thruster doors, which open with a nice satisfying pullback. Control for your floor air, which why more cars don't have air conditioning specifically for your mid-torso region, lower torso region, I don't know. The air conditioning does not work on this car either. But for an all-original, unrestored example, in what is considered quite possibly the most desirable color combination, it is a very interesting vehicle. The hood ornament is a beautiful little touch. They really spared no expense with these cars, went all out. At no point do you have any doubt as to what type of car you're in, you're driving, or you're seeing. Fuel access is here behind the giant eagle. I just love every angle of this car, from the long, prominent taillights to the fins on the rear bumper, sloping profile. They squared off the trunk a bit more in '66, part of its unique design features. And the door guards here, another optional little feature. The paint is holding up about as well as you'd expect for a car of this age. But stay tuned till next time, and in the near future we'll have a nice, pleasant drive when it's not scheduled to rain in this car to show off just how well it does down the road. By then I aim to have the speedometer fixed.